Hello, I'm Catherine LeGrand. Welcome to my South Durham, North Carolina flute studio. Today I'm going to be sharing some tips with you on preparing Honegger's Dance of the Goat. This piece was written in 1921 as incidental music to a play. It represents a sleeping goat who awakens and frolics in the springtime. The original manuscript of this piece has been lost. Historians have worked to create an accurate representation of the piece, but there are probably still some mistakes in the score. The most important potential mistake is in measure 6. The third to last note in the measure is probably an A natural, not an A sharp. Please visit my blog, catherinelegrand.blogspot.com, for some more information about other potential wrong notes in the score. This piece is most easily approached in sections. First, we'll study the first 4 lines of the piece and the last line of the piece, which shares the same material. The first 4 lines of the piece are slow and dreamlike. Just imagine the goat resting asleep, and his breathing goes up and down with the line, and in there's just a little fragment of him dreaming about dancing. That would be measure 7. In these opening measures, it is especially important to have very smooth fingerings between your notes. Be sure not to bump your fingers when going from the B to the E, and to also make sure your pinky slides very smoothly from the C to the F sharp, and then in measure 7 from the C sharp to the E. Very, very smoothly. And so it helps to have just a little bit of facial oil that you smear around on those foot joint keys and make it real slick. The potential wrong note I mentioned in measure 6 is again the A sharp, which is the third to last note in the measure. If you play the measure with the A sharp, it sounds like this. And with an A natural, it sounds like this. The second version is generally considered to be correct. In measure 7, there's a little hint of the goat dreaming of the dance he's going to do when springtime comes. In measure 11, it's very helpful to use the B-flat thumb key for that passage in 11 and 12, and also at the beginning of your chromatic scale. It's an exception to the rule. You almost never use a B-flat thumb key on a chromatic scale, but you can start this one that way. And then when you arrive at the C, you take your thumb off and then put it down on the B natural thumb key for the B, and then continue the chromatic scale with your lever key for the B-flat. You can also leave down the ring finger of your right hand after you play the first G-flat to help stabilize the flute and facilitate the fingerings. You'll need to remove it when you get to the chromatic scale, though. In the last line of the piece, measures 62 through 67, be sure to rest the full value of measure 62, and also be sure to give some good length through the fermata in measure 64. These silences are very important in framing the ending of the piece. The last measure of the piece, measure 67, is a harmonic fingering. You want the pitch of the third space C, but you're going to finger a low C and overblow that note at the octave to get the pitch. This has a very interesting kind of dirty tone quality the composer was looking for. Be sure to play this note very softly and decrescendo to nothing. The rhythms in the Danse sections of this piece are tricky and need to be very meticulously observed. I suggest practicing the rhythms of this piece subdivided into eighth notes, playing 2/16 on the second eighth note of these measures, and subdividing the quarter notes into eighth notes. Shortened quarter notes are a frequent problem in performances of this piece. So I'll give you an example. This is how I'd work on it. In measure 23, I'd even break up that dotted quarter note, trill, into 3/8 notes so that I could hear exactly how long that is. We tend to forget to count when we trill, don't we? I'd practice the same way in all the measures with these rhythms. For example, in measure 41. You could even continue like this. Another variation of this method of practice would be to make a sound in the rest. Sort of like beatboxing, I guess.